क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वैहुपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वा तिष्ठ परन्तप.
Many questions will arise in our mind when we hear somebody talk about Bhagavad Gita. What is so special about Bhagavad Gita? Some text which is over 5,000 years old, is it relevant today? Is it a Hindu religious scripture? Was Sri Krishna the right authority to talk about it when he was going around the trees with gopis in his childhood? Why there are so many commentaries on Gita? Why even Western scholars and philosophers were influenced by Gita? What authority do I have to speak on Gita when I am neither a scholar nor a spiritual master? My parents were fond of Bhagavad Gita. I did not know why. This was when I was 13 years old. They read Gita again and again whole life. During summer vacations, my father forced us siblings to learn verses in Bhagavad Gita, mainly three portions of it. Sthita Prajna Lakshan, meaning qualities of a steady mind, contained in the second part of second chapter. Then whole of chapter 6 and chapter 12. They deal with Sankhya Yoga, Yoga of knowledge, Atma Samyama Yoga, Yoga of self-control, and Bhakti Yoga, Yoga of devotion. It was then very boring to get them by heart, the Sanskrit verse and also its meaning. He also tested us from time to time. After several years, I realized the importance of this knowledge. This knowledge, ideas and concepts were put into daily practice, making it easy to handle ups and downs of life. I found more meaning in these verses as I had Sanskrit as a subject in a senior secondary and undergraduate levels. When ideas are understood, applied and tested to be true and useful, then it is important to share with others this knowledge supported by experience. Hence, I am taking this liberty to talk on Bhagavad Gita. Why we cannot ignore this ultimate wisdom contained in the Gita is revealed in the quotes of important personalities, Indian and foreign. Mahatma Gandhi said, "When doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and when I see not one ray of light on the horizon, I turn to Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me, and I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. My life has been full of external tragedies, and if they had not left any visible and indelible effect on me, I owe it to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita." Swami Vivekananda says, the greatest incident of the Mahabharata war was the marvelous and immortal poem of the Gita, the Song Celestial. It is the popular scripture of India and the loftiest of all teachings. It consists of a dialogue held by Arjuna with Krishna just before the commencement of the fight on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I would advise those of you who have not read this book to read it. If you want to know the source of American philosopher's Emerson's inspiration, it is this book, the Gita. This little book is responsible for Concord movement and other broad movements in America. Albert Einstein said, "When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous." Another American philosopher, Henry David Thoreau, said, "In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seems puny and trivial." Sri Krishna was an embodiment of his teaching. He was an embodiment of non-attachment throughout his life. He was in the midst of crisis after crisis, but remained totally undaunted. Gita has a universal message for mankind. Arjuna was representing whole of humanity, whose questions are all relevant today, and those solutions and teachings are also relevant today. Arjuna represents all of us, rather our own immature mind. Krishna represents our soul, our own inner conscience within. The two rows of army arranged in the battlefield represents our own positive and negative qualities fighting with each other within us since millions of years. Krishna is the empire, which is our spirit. The essence of Gita is that we would have known ourselves fully well only when we give primacy to spirit within us over body, mind, and intellect. Each reader of the Gita understood in his own way, depending on the predominant trait that he possessed himself. A votary of action felt Gita teaches Karma Yoga. A person whose disposition is towards intellect, Jnana Yoga was seen in Gita as the primary yoga, being professed by Sri Krishna. A person who is emotionally inclined found Gita laying emphasis on Bhakti Yoga. Interestingly, Sri Krishna treated all yogas equally, thus allowing people to choose what is best suited to their nature. Another interesting aspect is it is in the form of a dialogue. It is not one-sided. Sri Krishna does not believe in forcing anything on anybody. At the end, Sri Krishna asks Arjuna if he has understood the pros and cons of his teachings, and it is up to him to choose the path and be ready to face its consequences, sweet or bitter. Same is done by our own inner voice, that is the conscience, which is ever whispering into our ears, but we turn a deaf ear, and thus we face serious consequences very often. This being the introduction to the talk series on Bhagavad Gita that I am undertaking, I shall deal with each of the 18 chapters separately. While there are 700 verses, I will highlight very important verses in these chapters so that we are able to catch its essence and enjoy its fruits in our practical life. I am invoking the blessings of the Almighty for successful completion of this venture.
The first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Yoga of Despondency or Grief of Arjuna. Prince Arjuna is a warrior by birth. He won many battles and some single-handedly. He was the best archer among the Pandavas and Kauravas. He was the blue-eyed boy of his guru Dronacharya. He and his brothers had taken a conscious decision to fight their cousins led by Duryodhana, who had usurped their rightful portion of the kingdom. It is a normal practice for the warriors to assess the strength of both sides before the war began. So Arjuna requested his charioteer, who was Sri Krishna himself, to place his chariot in between both the armies. By this time, warriors from both sides had already blown their conch, heralding their readiness to start the war. Sri Krishna accordingly moved the chariot to the center. Arjuna surveyed both the sides. He was not at all afraid of the strength of the army. Instead of taking part in the war, Arjuna was moved with pity, compassion, and kindness when he saw on both sides his own relatives, friends, gurus, and their children as grandchildren. From his standing position, he now sat on the chariot, physically and mentally weak. He refused to fight. Just as our mind, when afraid of circumstances, wants to avoid any action and comes up with several reasons to justify its stand, Arjuna moved with several arguments in favor of not fighting. The first reason he gave to Sri Krishna, that it is a sin to kill my own kinsmen, that is relatives, friends and gurus. The second reason he gave is that how can I enjoy victory and be happy after killing all my relatives? And therefore, he would not kill them, and he was even ready to be killed by them. He declares that he does not desire victory or kingdom or pleasures. He was therefore full of sorrow. Luckily, Arjuna did not ask Sri Krishna to take the chariot out of the battlefield. It meant that there was still enough scope for convincing Arjuna to commence the fight. He would stand to reason, as he was very sharp intellectually and skillful and perfect in his work and responsibility. Each chapter has a title having name of yoga. How can we consider even sadness of Arjuna as a yoga, a path to the highest goal? Arjuna's behavior was definitely uncalled for. He was exhibiting qualities of compassion and kindness at the wrong time when he was supposed to fight the enemy who had been unrighteous and had been harsh and heavy on the common people. In his whole conduct, there is one most significant quality exhibited by Arjuna, that is his disinterest for victory, kingdom, and pleasures. Even though it was spontaneous and not deep enough, this distaste for material gains is the first requisite for acquiring the highest knowledge. That is why this chapter is also called a yoga. When things go smoothly in our life, we are not thirsty or ripe for seeking or accepting the right knowledge or even supreme wisdom. In the midst of his doubts and fears, Arjuna is now ready to listen to the wisdom of Sri Krishna. The second chapter is titled Sankhya Yoga, Yoga of Analytical Knowledge. So far, we have seen that Arjuna was in a confused state of mind and decided not to fight. We all face this situation very often in our lives. Our life itself is a battlefield. Arjuna was fortunate to have his dear friend Sri Krishna to help him. We have to handle problems alone many a times using our common sense, as we do not have somebody with us all the time. Our common sense also fails us a number of times as we are not equipped with higher knowledge. Often, we do not even acknowledge and recognize that we are sad and depressed, and we do not take steps to tackle it in time. Here, Arjuna's case was different. As a wise prince, he was aware fully that something was wrong with him and took a call immediately when he said to Sri Krishna, quote, "My mind is distracted by the taint of pity, and I am ignorant of what my duty is. And so, I ask you to teach me what is good for me. I am your disciple. I take refuge in you." Unquote. So Arjuna put himself in safe hands of Sri Krishna, thus acting wisely and timely, which we do not do in our lives. Either we think we know all the answers, or that others are not capable or trustworthy to guide us. We must try to identify elders, friends, and professionals who can help us in time. Now, the ball is in the court of Sri Krishna. It is his turn to use his wisdom and method to deal with Arjuna's problem in a proper manner. The situation is faced by us daily when parents have to handle children's problems, teacher to deal with students, and doctors with their patients. When the problem is psychological in nature compared to a bodily ailment, the effort should be of a high order. If the problem solver or advisor is not wise or enlightened, then the client will surely suffer his problem for more time, and it can get complicated. Sri Krishna systematically analyzed the problem of Arjuna. Arjuna had said that he will not fight and kill his relatives and thus can avoid incurring sin. First reaction of Sri Krishna was he laughed at the unusual behavior of Arjuna, just as parents laugh when a child is crying over a broken toy. He then chided in strong terms when he said, Klaipyam masmagama partha naitatvahyupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyatvadishta parantapa. O Arjuna, do not yield to unmanliness and weakness. It does not befit you. Give up weakness in your heart. Arise, O destroyer of enemies. He is not only pulling up, but also praising him as a great fighter. Sri Krishna was thus acting in a role of a master psychologist and even a psychiatrist. Talking about this verse, Swami Vivekananda said, if one reads this one sloka, he gets all the merits of reading the entire Gita. For in this one sloka lies embedded the whole message of the Gita. Courage and fearlessness are first virtues of man. All other good qualities will follow from them. So even in present day times, we are suffering in large numbers as we are not confident of ourselves, full of fear and weakness. This only adds to problems. Mental strength is therefore a necessity in every occasion. Gita's teaching now begins when Sri Krishna said, Asochyanavyasochatvam pragnavadam sabhasase gataso na gatasoncha nanasochanti pandita. It means, while you speak words of wisdom, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. This is a reply to Arjuna's statement that he does not want to kill. Sri Krishna will elaborate that there is no killing as the Atma, that is the soul in the body, is immortal. Only the body is destroyed. Our body is like our clothings, which we change and throw away when they get worn out. The soul takes new bodies every birth to accomplish its tasks and desires. The soul is neither killed nor can kill. Dehinosmin yata rehi kaumaram yavaram jara tatha dehantar prapti dhirah tatra namuyate. Just as man in this body passes through the various stages of boyhood, youth and old age, like so he passes into another body after death. The wise know it and are not deluded. Nainam chintanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, najayanam kledayantyapo, nasojayati marutaha. Weapons cannot cut, fire cannot burn, water cannot wet, wind cannot dry up. This Atma, the soul. After using the first argument of eternal nature of soul, Sri Krishna now stresses on the duty of Arjuna being a warrior. He makes three arguments. 1. Nothing is higher for a warrior than a righteous war which fetches him victory to enjoy the world or opens up the gateway to heaven. 2. By not fighting, he would only face disgrace from great warriors, people, and enemies, which is worse than death. And 3. It is not sinful to fight a righteous war. It is rather sinful not to fight such a war. Sri Krishna then gave 3 advices to Arjuna as to how to perform his duty. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phalechu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbuhu ma de sangotsa karmani. You have right to work only, not the fruits of action. 2. Yoga karmasu kausalam. Yoga is nothing but skill in action. 3. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is equanimity of mind in all circumstances, even while doing work. Arjuna is now opening up slowly when he asks Krishna as to what are the qualities of a person with a steady mind, equanimity of mind. Prajat yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushta cita prajnastadokyate. When a man renounces completely all the desires of the mind, and when he is fully satisfied with his mind fixed in Atma, that is the soul, then he is declared to be a man of steady mind. Dukkeshu anudvignamana sukeshu vividaspruva vitaraga bhaya krodha chitadi muni uchyate. He whose mind is not troubled in sorrow, who does not hanker after pleasures, and is free from attachment, fear, and hatred, he is called a man of steady wisdom. Can we householders give up all our desires, be unattached, and be away from all pleasures of life? Krishna is emphasizing here on duty and responsibilities. We have many desires which are beyond the need of the duty. He is only cautioning that we give up those desires, fears, and pleasures which come in the way of bringing us peace and happiness. It is for us to consciously decide the kitty of desire and also be ready to accept the outcome, the consequences of such desires. A steady mind is possible when we are able to have full control over our impulses and distractions. Chapter 3 is titled Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. What actions should be undertaken, how they must be performed, is explained. There is a strong criticism against Indian culture in some corners of the globe that Indians are obsessed with the otherworldly and do not pay much attention to the practical life. This chapter stands as a strong rebuttal to such a criticism. There is no advice given to the people to head towards forest for contemplation, ignoring their normal social life. Rather, the emphasis is on performance of one's duty with complete dedication and to the best of one's abilities. The path of action has been elevated to high level at par with path of knowledge and path of devotion, all reaching the same destination of self-realization. In the present context, when Arjuna is refusing to perform his ordained duty on superfluous and personal grounds that his relatives are coming in the way, Sri Krishna is compelled to tell Arjuna the tenets of rightful action which will be productive to the society and it will not bind the individual. Sri Krishna begins by saying that no one can be without any action. If I am not performing any duty, I have to at least get up for my bodily upkeep. I must eat, drink, and sleep. Deliberate inaction to perform one's duties is discouraged. Sri Krishna says that there is no need for him to act, but he is working continuously for two reasons. One, to keep the world going, and two, to set an example to the people that work must be performed. All of us are compelled to perform work for earning for livelihood and to fulfill our desires. In fact, when you see the trains and factories in the morning or in the evening, millions of people are going to or returning from workplace regularly as if they are on a military duty. In fact, we can say that the teachings of Sri Krishna ended with the second chapter, which dealt with the spirit and its eternal nature. What was the need to continue the dialogue to cover up to 18th chapter? We can say that all other chapters are elaboration of knowledge and ideas of the second chapter. Sri Krishna liberally allowed Arjuna to seek clarifications so that he can understand them better. The third chapter starts with Arjuna telling Krishna as to why he is asking him to fight to take the path of action when the path of knowledge is superior. Sri Krishna's reply is very clear. If action is performed with full awareness and self-realization, it is no way inferior to the path of knowledge. How then is the duty to be performed? The duty has to be done for a righteous cause and in a righteous manner as per prescribed norms. Two important principles have been laid down. One, work without attachment, that is the process aspect. And two, work without expecting fruits of action, that is the output aspect. Swami Vivekananda says, work for work's sake, that is working without any motive and treating work as worship. Let us take up the first aspect of work being performed without attachment. What should be the process of working, of the nature of performing the action? Here, Arjuna refused to fight because he was attached to his relatives. In a righteous war or in a righteous action in our normal life, the personal biases, prejudices, likes and dislikes, discriminatory attitude, impure mind with narrow and selfish motives cannot be allowed to operate when we are working. Arjuna was looking from a very narrow personal angle when he was supposed to have a larger picture, which is Krishna's perspective, to fight a righteous war, irrespective of whether the enemy is consisting of relatives or not. Such a wrong perspective not only delays right action, but the course of action can be misguided with serious consequences and outcomes over the individuals and the society. Let us take up two examples. One where work is performed with attachment, and another work is performed without attachment. A government officer is appointing his own relatives and friends in his office, whether they are capable of delivering the work or not. This way, he is misusing his office for fulfilling his personal motives and denying the entry of others who may be more qualified and productive. He is not concerned about the future of the organization. In fact, his reputation and the quality of the organization will surely get affected in due course, requiring its revamping. This is working with attachment. Another case is of a mother in the family. She is discharging her duties not only as a mother, but wife, daughter-in-law, and mother-in-law. She is ensuring health of every family member and is working hard towards ensuring the unity of the family. She does not expect anything much from anybody. Rather, she has a giving nature and even prepared to sacrifice her comforts. When children grow up and have to go abroad to study, work, or even settle down, she is prepared to allow them rather than binding them to be with her, to take care of her in old age. This is working without attachment. Let us take up the aspect of doing work without expecting the results. We all work only if that work can get the outcome we want. We refuse to work if there is uncertainty in achieving the goal. For a soldier, if he thinks that he is going to die in the war and he would not fight, then he is performing his duty improperly. Whereas if the farmer is making efforts to grow crops every year, irrespective of whether there is going to be rain or water supply or gains in the market, then he is performing his duty well. Even though the future is uncertain, yet he is not hesitating to grow the crops. It is said that when we contemplate, listen to our inner voice, free ourselves from all biases, prejudices, likes and dislikes, maintain equanimity of mind and self-control, we are likely to perform our work efficiently, perfectly, selflessly, and to the benefit of the larger good, and not bothered about success or failure, praise or insult, gain or loss. This is Karma Yoga, living like a lotus plant in a pond untouched by waters. Chapter 4 is Jnana Yoga, Yoga of Knowledge. We may recall that in second chapter, Sri Krishna talked about presence of Atma, the eternal soul in every being. In the third chapter, he talked about how our duty should be performed. Now, on his own, even without any query from Arjuna, he decided to talk about yoga of knowledge, that is Jnana Yoga. Because to do action, to do the right action, and to know what is a prohibited action and inaction, the individual must have clear knowledge. Only then he can proceed further. Sri Krishna began to say, I first taught this supreme knowledge of yoga to the sun god, who passed on to his son Manu, and Manu passed on to his son. As time passed, this yoga was lost to the world. I am now teaching you, O Arjuna, the same ancient yoga. Immediately, Arjuna questioned as to how it could be possible when sun god existed even before Sri Krishna was born. Sri Krishna clarified in this manner, O Arjuna, many births of mine have passed as well as yours. I know them all, but you know them not. Though unborn and eternal in my being, the Lord and the control of all beings, controlling my own nature, I come into being by the power of my own Maya Shakti. Yada yada hi dharmasya ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. Sanskrit is God's language. Isn't it melodious? Sorry for distraction. Let us see what is the meaning of these two verses of Sri Krishna. O Arjuna, whenever there is decline of righteousness and rise of evil, I manifest myself. For the protection of good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for establishing dharma, I take birth in every age. Dharma, which Sri Krishna is referring to, is trying to achieve social equilibrium on the basis of certain good principles. Jnana Yoga is to know, understand, and realize that the Supreme Soul is the Lord and controller of this universe. The Supreme Soul has manifested in the individual souls which are identical in nature. But due to ignorance, these individual souls forget their identity and accumulate karma. On purification of mind dawns the knowledge, the wisdom that the same self exists in all beings. Then the individual soul, imbibing the worldview of the Supreme Soul, works for the preservation of Dharma, being desireless, detached from fruits of action, showing compassion to all. This way, the individual soul gets liberated from the cycle of birth and death and merges with the Supreme Soul. Sri Krishna finally said that there is nothing so pure as knowledge in this world. He who is perfected in Nishkama Karma, that is, working selflessly, finds this wisdom by himself in Atma, in his own soul, in due course of time. It is thus clear that duty is to be performed as a yoga. It will not only purify the mind, but it will lead us to the final goal of self realization. Chapter 5 is called Karma Sannyasa Yoga, Yoga of Renunciation of Action. Arjuna asked Sri Krishna a very interesting question, which we also have it in our mind. O Krishna, you have praised knowledge as the purest in the world, which is attaining final goal of liberation through renunciation of action. You have also praised action, that is selfless action. So, tell me conclusively which is better. Sri Krishna, understanding that Arjuna is listening to his advice carefully, makes 4 strong statements. 1. That real renunciation is mentally giving up pairs of opposites like desire and hatred, pleasure and pain, praise and insult, loss and gain, and not renunciation of action. 2. It is immature to think Jnana Yoga is different from Karma Yoga. Pick up any of the 2 paths, you will obtain fruit of both. 3. Renunciation is difficult to attain without Karma Yoga. And 4. Action is better than renunciation of action. Sri Krishna knew that accepting a very few, all of the humanity is living in ignorance and needs purification of mind. So, the path of action is suitable to achieve purity, which is the prerequisite for progressing spiritually. Let us see how Jnana Yoga is difficult. A Jnana Yogi controls his thoughts, he is free from desire and hatred, and has attained the knowledge of the self. He performs austerities, turning away from all external impressions, fixing his gaze in the center of the brows, controlling incoming and outgoing breath, keeping body, senses, mind, and intellect in control. Knowing that the Supreme Soul is the Lord, controller of all the worlds, enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, friend of all beings, this Jnana Yogi attains freedom and peace. Sri Krishna then tells Arjuna about Karma Yogi. Karma Yogi, who is performing work with controlled mind and senses, is not tainted by sin, as he will do his duty without any selfish motive. He will also have clear feeling that he is not the doer of action. So, his ego is not active. He places all his actions as an offering to the Supreme and lives a pure life like a lotus in waters. Such a karma yogi will develop equal vision towards a Brahmana endowed with knowledge and humility, on a cow, on an elephant, on a dog, and on the outcast who feeds on dog's flesh. Two incidents are worth narrating here. A youth approached a guru and told him his intention to renounce the world and join his ashram. Guru asked him who are all in his family. He said he is unmarried and has parents and no siblings. Guru then advised him not to hurt his parents who need his service. By staying at home, serving the parents, and being devoted to God is better than abandoning them who are needy and helpless. Next case is very interesting. A married man with children reached an ashram after having a fight with his spouse. He told the Guru that he is fed up of the world and wants to renounce and join the ashram. Guru allowed him to stay for 3 months, and thereafter he would take a decision whether to admit him or not. At the end of 2 weeks, the married man started feeling that he is missing his dear children, wife, office duty, affectionate friends, his tasty food, and game of cricket. He found the ashram boring and tough to kill time, and he took leave of the Guru and returned home happily. So, Sri Krishna has rightly said that if the mind is not fully controlled and is not free from desires and attachment, we then cannot be without work, without our pleasures, and without the people around whom we love. Chapter 6 is called Atma Samyama Yoga, Yoga of self-control. It is also called Dhyana Yoga, Yoga of meditation. Rightly, Sri Krishna has taken up this subject as self-control is crucial for both a karma yogi as well as a jnani to achieve progress. If I am asked as to which one chapter that deals with our most central problem of controlling our restless mind, I will recommend this chapter 6. Man has conquered the outer physical world, whether in the areas of health and medicine, knowledge of all disciplines, control of nuclear energy, outer space, and whatnot. But he continues to struggle to attain peace of mind as he is not able to conquer his inner world, that is, his restless mind, thoughts, emotions, and feelings. It is said that real conquest of the world is achieved only when we have conquered our own self. When Arjuna asks Sri Krishna on how to control the mind, which is restless, turbulent, straying, unyielding, and as difficult to control it as the wind, Sri Krishna fully agreed with Arjuna. Asamsayam mahabahu mano durnigraham chalam abhyasenud kaunteya vairagena ch guyate. O Arjuna, doubtless the mind is restless and difficult to restrain, but by practice and dispassion it can be controlled. Let us take up these two real solutions given by Sri Krishna: practice and dispassion. On birth, we are without a mind, thoughts, feelings, and habits. Only in due course we develop habits, good and bad, and these continued habits decide our behavior and character. To obtain a graduate degree, to learn a new job, or even to become a singer, a poet, teacher, doctor, engineer, carpenter, or even a cook, all these require regular and prolonged practice with concentration. In the same manner, we are advised that by practice we can change our habits by meditation, chanting, reading of spiritual books, and silence and self observation. We can watch our thoughts and control them. Controlling means allowing positive thoughts to be generated and preventing the negative thoughts. This is very important, as Sri Krishna says, Uddaredatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha. We must control our mind by our own efforts and do not allow our mind to let us down, because mind can be our friend and mind can be our enemy. Dispassion is another method by which we understand intrinsic value of our thoughts, of our things and people, and all the objects of the world. We develop likings, attachments to things which give us pleasure. We hate things which give us pain. But addiction leads to restlessness and pain. When we change our attitude to the objects of the world due to knowledge that they are temporary and painful, then mind begins to distance itself from them. Mind realizes that it is better to invest on those objects which give permanent happiness. Another important idea which Sri Krishna gave to Arjuna is to maintain moderation in our lifestyle, which can help in achieving self-control. Yuktara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu Yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. Be moderate. Avoid excess of in all things. Be moderate in food and recreation, in activity and sleep and wakefulness. This helps in having easy control over body and mind. This is one aspect in our modern life which has suffered a serious casualty. The sleeping timings are irregular, food is not taken in time, sometimes overeating, and sometimes going hungry for a long period, occupied with work or entertainment. There is no proper discipline or plan of action. So, in these matters, use of mobile phones and internet for long periods has a serious impact on our lives in the long run, as it disturbs the daily routine. Sri Krishna's suggestion is most relevant in these times. One final and important point has been raised by Arjuna in this chapter, which will improve our knowledge about life and death. The question that he asked is, in the process of transforming himself through controlling his mind, if the individual dies before achieving perfection, do all his efforts go waste? Sri Krishna's reply is this: anyone who has started taking the right path, he will not face darkness. His merits will be carried forward to the next life, by which he will be born in a pious and rich family and will continue to make efforts to achieve his progress, his goal. This assurance of Sri Krishna has a few good implications for our understanding that there is a previous life and also a future life for us, and that what we do is all registered in our destiny and will serve as an investment for future. And more importantly, it solves our serious puzzle in the mind as to why each of us are born with different character, tastes and goals. Sky seems to be the limit in planning our life. All our desires and goals can be achieved in this birth, if not in the next birth. As stated by Sri Krishna, if we can control our mind, we can then create our destiny on our own terms. Chapter 7 is called Vijnana Yoga, Yoga of Wisdom. Jnana Yoga was revealed, which is yoga of knowledge, derived from reading scriptures. Vijnana Yoga is attaining direct knowledge by personal experience. Sri Krishna knew that Arjuna will not accept things blindly. He is a very rational being. Anything should be proved by evidence or experience. Arjuna rightly represents all of us who do not believe without testing. Out of compassion to Arjuna, who has sought full refuge in him, Sri Krishna is sharing essence of his own supreme being, the knowledge combined with experience, knowing which nothing else needs to be known in the world. Sri Krishna says, O Arjuna, my phenomenal nature consists of 8 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, reason, and also egoism. This is the gross part of mine. My higher transcendental nature is a life element by which the universe is upheld. Both these natures are controlled by me, the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord is the source of creation, maintenance, and dissolution of all beings in the world. There is nothing whatsoever higher than me. All is strung as clusters of gems on a string. I am the essence of all objects. Sapidity in water, radiance in fire, sun and moon, sound in ether, fragrance in earth, life in all beings, intelligence of the wise, strength of the strong, devoid of desire and passion. In all beings some desire, not contrary to dharma. Deluded by ignorance, the whole world does not know me. I love Jnani because he is always absorbed in me, loves only me and nothing else. I know the past, present and the future of all beings, but me no one knows. And finally, the Lord says, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudevam sarvamiti samahatma suturlapaha. At the end of many lives, the Jnani realizes me, knowing that all is God. Such a great soul is indeed very rare. It is thus very clear that Supreme Lord expects us to see Him in His creation. It means He is not different from His creation. It implies we have to experience Him in His creation and respect it. Chapter 8 is called Akshara Parabrahma Yoga, Yoga of imperishable Brahman, the Supreme Lord whose nature is of imperishability. Arjuna asked Sri Krishna 2 important questions. O Krishna, what is your real nature, and how you are known to the wise at the time of death? Answer to this question helps us to know what really happens to us after death. Sri Krishna, as the Lord, is indestructible and supreme, omniscient and ancient, Lord and controller of all the worlds, subtler than atom, supporter of all, inconceivable in form, self-illuminating, like sun shining beyond the darkness. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalebaran yaprayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samsayaha. He who casts off the body at the time of death and goes forth remembering me only attains my being. There is no doubt in this. Remembering the Lord at the last minute is very crucial. It is not easy to remember the Lord at the end without making it a habit throughout the life. That is why Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna that even when he is fighting, he must remember him, as death can come at any time. At the time of death, the wise, restraining all senses, fixing the mind in Atma, the soul, holding the vital breath in the head, repeating the sacred syllable Om, will attain him, the Supreme. On reaching him, the individual does not return to the world of pain and misery. What about the rest? Whosoever leaves the body thinking of whatsoever object, form, or being at the end, to that only he goes. One example in our mythology is that sage Jadabharata, in spite of his great austerities, was attached to a deer which he protected, and when he passed away, thought of the deer filled his mind. Consequently, he was born as a deer. Again, on the basis of our merits and sins, the person stays in different outer worlds for some time and returns to earth again to take birth. Only when the person attains the Supreme Being, there is no rebirth. Chapter 9 is called Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga, the yoga of royal knowledge and royal secret. The knowledge of Supreme Self, that is, the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Lord, is the profoundest secret which is liberating in nature. Sri Krishna explains his glories so that Arjuna and humanity in general get inspired to increase their reverence and devotion towards Atma, their own soul, and the Supreme Lord, forgetting the limited and painful body-mind consciousness. It is a body-mind consciousness which creates attachment to the worldly objects. Yad bhavam tad bhavati is a saying, as your thoughts, so you become. If we dwell on material objects which are transitory in nature, which give temporary pleasure and more pain, which take away our peace of mind, then our life becomes miserable. Once focused on higher goal of contemplation on Atma, our inner soul or the pure heart, we are reaching new realms of peace, knowledge, and blissful experience. Sri Krishna declares that by him all this universe is pervaded. All beings are in him. Just as the mighty wind moving everywhere is placed in ether, even so, know that all beings are in me. All beings at the time of dissolution, that is pralaya, enter me. Again, at the time of creation, they all emerge out of me. No action of mine binds me. Like the sun remains unattached to the happenings on the earth, it remains a silent witness. The same I am to all beings. There is none hateful or dear to me, but those who worship me are in me, and I am also in them. I accept even the most sinful person if he worships me, taking refuge in me. These of sinful birth, women, Vaishyas, and Shudras, all attain me. The universality of Gita is thus proclaimed to the whole world. No one is barred from the highest realization. Caste, creed, sex, low birth, all have same opportunity and possibility. Purity of mind is the real test to obtain knowledge. In the eyes of the Supreme Lord, all beings, good or bad, are all equal. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktaiva atmanam matparayanaha. On me fix your mind, be my devotee, sacrifice to me, bow down to me, harmonize thus in the self, you shall come to me, having me as a supreme goal. How does devotion to the Lord benefit us? Sri Krishna replies, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Of those men who worship me alone, thinking of no other, ever united with me, I carry their yoga, that is, securing things which they do not possess, and kshema, that is, preserving what they possess. In our mythology, there are instances where the Lord protected the righteous Pandavas, especially Draupadi when she was in deep trouble. He protected even child devotee Prahalada from his evil father. In modern times, there is proof that he came to the rescue of Mirabai, a devotee of Krishna, when she was poisoned. He also helped Saint Narsingh Mehta of Gujarat when he had to get his daughter married, for which he needed money. The Lord is in this way, out of compassion to all the humanity, is persuading us all to follow the right path of knowledge and devotion and come out of the turbulent ocean of life and death. Chapter 10 is called Vibhuti Yoga, Yoga of Divine Glories. Sri Krishna can be seen to be impatient to share his magnificent powers, manifestations, and infinite glories to draw his disciple Arjuna more closer to the truth. This is possible only if Arjuna is convinced that the Lord is supreme, second to none, and he is everywhere. Even Arjuna got the taste of Lord's yogic powers and is now thirsty to hear more of them. Sri Krishna began to say, Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashayastitaha Aham Hadischa Madhyamcha Bhutanam Antayevacha. O Arjuna, I am the self seated in the hearts of all beings. I alone am origin, middle, and the end of beings. Among the Vedas, I am Samaveda. Among the gods, I am Indra. Among the senses, I am the mind. Among the living beings, I am intelligence. Among the Rudras, I am Shankara. Among lakes, I am the ocean. Among immovable objects, I am Himalayas. Among words, I am the one-syllable Om. Among divine rishis, I am Narada. Among siddhas, I am sage Kapila. Among weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among controllers, I am Yama, lord of death. Among beasts, I am lion. Among warriors, I am Rama. Among rivers, I am Ganga. Among sciences, I am the science of self-knowledge. Among debates, I am logic or reason. Among the feminine qualities, I am fame, prosperity, speech, memory, intelligence, firmness, and forgiveness. Among seasons, I am the flowering spring. I am the gambling of the fraudulent. I am the goodness of the good. Among Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the punishers, I am punishment. Of the secrets, I am silence. Sri Krishna then concludes that whatever he has described is still very less. The whole universe, with everything in it, is only a fragment of his infinite glory. Chapter 11 is called Vishwarupa Sandarshana Yoga, Yoga of vision of the cosmic form. We are taking everything in our life, every happening, for granted. We have no time or even interest in reflecting upon the greatest miracles happening around us day in and day out. I will cite 3 instances here. 1. About the growth of the child in the womb of the mother, not only in humans but also in animals too. With a drop of semen and ovum, how is the baby growing with all its limbs, surviving inside till it makes entry into the world? 2. On being born and till death, how the living creature is growing and decaying, how all the systems are functioning without the effort of the living beings, breathing, sleeping, alimentary system, nervous system, muscular system, brain system, blood circulation, hair and bone growth. 3. How is there regularity of sunrise and sunset, moon, stars, rains and air? Earth, rivers and mountains and trees are pervading the planet. Is there not a controlling force? And this universe is in existence for millions of years. All the livings are being fed and given air to breathe and water to drink. Discovering that inner energy or the spirit behind this phenomena will throw full light to our questions. Even after hearing so much of the powers and glories directly from the Supreme Lord, Arjuna is still not satisfied. He wants to see everything himself. Listening was not enough to convince his rational mind, as the mind may be still doubting, as if everything that is said, is it only a dream? Arjuna has now appealed directly to Sri Krishna to show his cosmic form, which means converting all his verbal teachings into a visual truth. Sri Krishna agreed to the appeal of Arjuna. Giving him divine eye, Sri Krishna showed him his cosmic form. Arjuna was overwhelmed with wonder and amazement. His hair stood on end. Folding his hands with deep reverence, Arjuna said, "O Lord, I see thy body, all the gods, also hosts of various classes of beings, Brahma, all sages, and celestial serpents. As a splendor of 1,000 suns were to blaze out together in the sky, that would resemble that glory of thy being. The whole universe appears as one of the limbs of thy form, without beginning, middle, and end, and infinite in power, with sun and moon as thy eyes, endless heads and arms and mouths with burning fire. The interspace of heaven and earth and all quarters are indeed filled by thee alone. All beings are trembling with fear and paying obedience to thee. All the great warriors on the enemy side are rushing into the flames of death." Sri Krishna now said the most important message to Arjuna. "O Arjuna, I am time, world destroying and mighty. Even without you, these warriors in the hostile armies shall not live. So do not fear, fight, and you shall conquer." Now, satisfied but full of fear, Arjuna prayed to Sri Krishna thus: "Kiritinam gadinam chakrahastam ichami tvam drashtum aham tataiva tenaiva rupena chaturbhujena sahasrabaho bhava vishwamurte." I desire to see thee as before, with crown, mace, and discus in thy former four-armed form only. Appear, O thousand-armed, O universal form. Assuming the natural form, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that he was the first person to see the cosmic form. Even gods and sages are always eager to see. Matkarma krit matparamu madbhaktah sangavarjitah nirvaira sarvabhuteju yassamameti Pandava. O Arjuna, whosoever works for me only, that is Karma Yoga, who looks on me as the only refuge, Dhyana Yoga, who is devoted to me, Bhakti Yoga, who is freed from attachment, Jnana Yoga, and who has no enmity to any being, he attains me. Adi Shankaracharya declared that this single verse contains the essence of whole of Gita, covering all the yogas. We have so much to learn from the cosmic form of the Lord. Its significance is manifold. One, that the Lord and the whole of universe as one single entity, which is the eternal truth, was proved conclusively. And this oneness cannot be seen by us as long as we are controlled by ignorance, ego, and Maya. 2. The Lord is omnipresent, that is, present everywhere, omniscient, all-knowing, omnipotent, all-powerful. All the rest derive their authority and power from Him. 3. The Lord is self-luminous, whose splendor is equal to 1,000 suns, which was recalled by American scientist Robert Oppenheimer while witnessing the explosion of Trinity nuclear test. When nuclear weapons were used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he once again remarked, quoting the verse from Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of the worlds." 4. That each individual treats more than one yoga, of which one yoga becomes prominent in him. 6. Arjuna and we in general got a clear message when Sri Krishna said that he does everything, but he only expects us to be an obedient instrument. Nimitta matram bhava savyasachi. O Arjuna, be you a mere instrument to me. 6. As a great teacher, we see how Sri Krishna moved from simple teaching to complex concepts gradually so that the student is able to understand and digest properly. He prepared the student step by step to understand his teachings. He allowed the student to question and seek clarifications in time. He also developed interest in Arjuna on such a boring and difficult subject for people who are pleasure loving. Experiencing all his teachings by his own eyes convinced Arjuna fully without any doubt. This is the task of a great teacher. 7. And finally, what is most significant is that we are lucky to discover that we are a spark of the divine, same in substance, though not in magnitude. Sri Krishna assures that if we attune to Him closely, we can inherit His power and glory. Chapter 12 is called Bhakti Yoga, Yoga of Devotion. When Arjuna asked Sri Krishna as to who is superior, meditator on formless God or worshipper of God with form, Sri Krishna replied that it is not important whether they choose one with form or without form. What is important is that they should possess 3 qualities. 1. Mind should be established in the Lord. 2. Ever thinking of Him. And 3. Have firm faith in God. Worshipping God with form, though, is easier than meditating on formless. The Lord then describes the attributes of a true devotee who has unshakable love of God. There are 7 verses describing 25 qualities of a devotee who is dear to the Lord. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara samadukka sukhi kshami santushta satam yogi yatatma drudanischayah mayarpita mano buddhir यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः यस्मान्नो द्विजते लोको लोकान्नो द्विजते च यः हर्षामर्षभयोद्वेगैर्मुक्तो यः स च मे प्रियः अनपेक्षः शुचिर्दक्ष उदासीनो गतव्यतः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः यो न हर्ष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न काङ्क्षति शुभाशुभ परित्यागी भक्तिमान् मे स मे प्रियः समः शत्रौ च मित्रे च तथा मानावमानयोः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु समः सङ्गविवर्जितः तुल्यनिन्दास्तुतिर्मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतः स्थिरमति भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः. Sri Krishna expects these 25 qualities in his devotee. Such virtues alone will draw the devotee closer to God. I was always under impression that bhakti, devotion to God, will need only 2 qualities: complete faith in the Lord and remembering Him continuously. But these 25 qualities can be classified into 2 categories: those qualities which are totally personal and individual, like, for instance, contentment, patience, or firmness in decision. The other category is interpersonal attributes, that is, how the devotee should relate himself towards the other human being or other living beings. The devotee's level of progress is thus determined by the way he treats those around. This means that if we trouble and cheat people on one side and go to the temple to offer our respects to the Lord on the other, such is not appreciated by the Lord. The Lord is expecting that we respect His creation. How can my friend be happy with me if I misbehave or even beat up his son or even his dog? Same is the case with the Supreme Lord, the parent of all living beings. Let us now go through all these 25 qualities. Out of them, 21 qualities pertain to the personal or individual attributes: equanimity in joy and sorrow, forbearance, contentment, self-control, firm determination, surrendering the mind and intellect to God, desirelessness, purity, competence in action, freedom from anxiety, renunciation of the fruits of action, absence of elation, renunciation of good and bad, equanimity in honor and dishonor, equanimity in heat and cold, non-attachment, silence, contentment with whatever is obtained by chance, devotion of God, absence of egoism. The 4 interpersonal qualities are absence of hatred towards all beings, friendliness, compassion, equal mindedness towards friends and enemies. Chapter 13 is called Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, yoga of division between the field and its knower. Sri Krishna is the master salesman. He knows how to sell his ideas. In Sankhya Yoga, he has already told Arjuna and to us that yoga of analytical knowledge, wherein in the body there is Atma, pure and eternal, whereas the body is temporary. Atma takes up new body every birth to accomplish its task and undergo consequences of its earlier actions. Then what was the need for Sri Krishna to talk of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, which when translated will only mean the body and the Atma? It is very clear that the Supreme Lord knows that many people would not easily understand Sankhya Yoga, which is highly technical. So, in layman's language and concepts, the Lord, out of his bounded compassion, is trying his best to explain the dynamics to satisfy the understanding capacity of every individual. He takes up the simple analogy of a field which is cultivated by the farmer. If he grows fruits, he will get fruits. If he grows weeds, he will get weeds. Hence, Kshetra means the field, which is not just the body, but also consists of mind, senses, feeling, emotions, and the three fundamental attributes, the gunas: sattva guna, purity and knowledge; rajas, being active and proud; and tamas, lazy and ignorant, which influence the individual soul, which is ignorant of its real nature, the pure Atma. Kshetrajna is the knower of the field. Supreme Lord says he is the Kshetrajna present in every being. He is the basis, present as the one cognizing power in human being, irrespective of caste, creed, race, sex and nationality, and in all animals, reptiles and worms. Kshetrajna. Kshetra is changing. Kshetrajna is unchanging. Kshetrajna, though it dwells in the body, is separate from the body, the witness, the permitter and supporter. Kshetrajna is non-doer. The jiva performs all actions influenced by its qualities of sattva, rajas and tamas. As you sow, so you reap. So the individual, as a field, takes birth after birth due to cause and effect of its desires and actions. The Lord concludes that those who, with the eye of knowledge, know the distinction between Kshetra, the field, and Kshetrajna, the knower of the field, and liberated from ignorance, they attain Paramatma, the Supreme Soul. Chapter 14 is called Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, yoga of the division of the three gunas, three predominant qualities of behavior of not only human but of the animal world. I really do not know if the students of psychology in their higher education are taught about the three gunas, three attributes of human behavior. If it is not done, the students are missing something fundamental. The Supreme Lord, again out of his deep affection to Arjuna and on his own, is encouraging him to apply Jnana Yoga to understand why a human being behaves the way he does beyond his own control. This helps not only in self analysis but also in understanding the other person, rather, the whole of humanity. This is to say, it is the beginning of self discovery. Once we know what we are made up of, then it has many good implications. One, without being puzzled, we can really analyze behavior of ours and others. It is the root cause. Two, then effort can be made to gradually shift the pattern of behavior to reach higher levels. 3. By understanding the difficulty in changing our behavior, we then also realize and sympathize with others when they behave badly because we know they are under the grip of the gunas, and so we are no more impatient to change them or expect any changes in them overnight. We then realize we are all sailing in the same boat with variation in level of consciousness, and that all of us need the medicine of self realization. Now, Sri Krishna begins by saying that nothing exists in this universe beyond his creation. He is the creator of the nature, meaning the material world, out of which these three gunas have taken birth under the influence of his Maya illusionary power: Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. It is due to the existence of these gunas in various proportions that living beings are caught in the net of cycle of birth and death. The Supreme Lord, now assuming the role of a human psychologist, analyzes threadbare each of the gunas. Sattva-guna attaches the individual soul, that is Jiva, to happiness, Rajoguna to action, Tamoguna to error by shrouding knowledge. Sattva-guna, by the purity, is light-giving and untroubled. It binds, however, the individual by attachment to joy of the senses and by attachment to knowledge. Rajoguna is of the nature of pursuing or passion for objects arising from desire and attachment. It binds man by attachment to action. Tamoguna is born of ignorance, and all beings are deluded by it. It binds fast man by heedlessness, indolence, and sleep. There are all these three gunas in each individual of different proportion, but one guna predominates either throughout life or even in specific situations and actions. When Sattva-guna functions, the other two gunas are overpowered, and same is the case with other two gunas. Person of Sattva-guna can be recognized by his possessing light of intellectual knowledge. Person of Rajoguna by greed, activity, the undertaking of desireful action, restlessness, and longing for worldly enjoyments. Person of Tamoguna but darkness of intellect, inertness, heedlessness, and also delusion, that is, false understanding. What happens when they die possessing these qualities? The individual who possesses Sattva attains the worlds of the highest and the pure. Of Rajoguna, he is born among those attached to action in the human world. Of Tamoguna, he is born in the womb of the senseless, that is, animals, birds, trees, rocks, and so on. The fruit of action of Sattva sattvic nature, is pure. Of Rajas is suffering. Of Tamas is ignorance. The Lord here hints at self-knowledge. The seeker of knowledge must not identify himself with these three gunas. He should realize he is fully separate from them. He is the Atma, the soul, eternal and unattached. This is the path to liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Going beyond the gunas, that is gunatita, means being unconcerned and unaffected by the functioning of the gunas, equal-mindedness in joy and sorrow, equal in censure and praise, same towards friends and enemies, abandoning all selfish actions and establishing in the self. Finally, the Lord states that this state of Gunatita is possible only by Bhakti Yoga. The Lord started with the Jnana Yoga. He is now ending with Bhakti Yoga, which is the only way of invoking the highest power, that is the Lord's grace, to cut asunder the chains of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and to attain Him finally, which is the freedom from all bondage. Chapter 15 is called Purushottama Prapti Yoga, the yoga of the attainment of the Supreme Purusha, that is Paramatma, Supreme Soul or Supreme Lord. Having discussed in detail in the previous chapter about the three gunas and how the being is bound to the material world, the Lord, through an analogy of Ashwatha tree, fig tree, which has roots not only in the beginning of the tree, but the roots grow even from the branches. He compares the fig tree with the samsara, the illusionary material world. In this analogy, the Lord shows that the tree as being upside down, that is, the roots are upwards and the branches are spreading downwards endlessly. And these branches generate roots, making the tree grow continuously. The branches and the leaves are the desires. Due to the three gunas and desires, there appears no end to the expansion of cycle of life and death. The Lord says that the individual soul, Jiva, must cut this tree of samsara by the axe of non-attachment, asanga shastrena, and only then the man can reach the state of Paramatma. Tam eva cha adhyam purusham prapatye. Take refuge in the primeval Purusha alone. Then the Lord says, Mamaivamso Jivaloke Jivabhuta Sanatana Mana Chastani Indriyani Prakristani Karshasi. Only a portion of my eternal self has become the soul, that is Jiva, in the world of livings. He, the Jiva, draws to itself with the mind as the sixth sense, the five senses abiding in the material nature. Lord clearly says that Jiva, in truth, is not different from Paramatma. Once the impurities attached to Jiva are removed, Jiva will manifest as Paramatma. Jiva is a reflection of Paramatma. To prove that the Lord is present in the heart of all beings, he gives an example. Aham Vaishwanara Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritah Prana Prana Samayuktah Pachamyannam Chaturvidam. Abiding in the body of beings, having become the digestive fire, which is called Jataragni, called Vaishnavara, I digest 4 types of food with the help of prana, pana, vital energy of breathing. The Lord is thus declared as Purushottama, as he is the highest of all beings and the creation. Chapter 16 is titled Daivasura Sampad Vibhag Yoga. Yoga of the division between the divine and the demonical. After dealing with the 3 gunas, 3 shades of human attributes, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, Lord Krishna discusses in detail how human race can be divided into 2 groups. One group possessing divine or positive qualities, and the other group having demonical or negative qualities. The Lord has enumerated 26 qualities of virtuous people: fearlessness, purity of heart, steadfastness in knowledge and yoga, alms giving, control of senses, sacrifice, study of the Shastras, that is scriptures, austerity, straightforwardness, harmlessness, truth, absence of anger, renunciation, peacefulness, absence of crookedness, compassion to beings, absence of greed, gentleness, modesty, absence of fickleness, energy, forgiveness, fortitude, purity, absence of hatred, and absence of pride. 6 qualities of those with demonical nature are pretension, pride, self-conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. People of demonical nature deny existence of God. They act with impure resolves, with little intellect, and fierce deeds to bring about destruction of the world. They do not bother to obey the scriptures, thinking of sensual enjoyments as the goal, prompted by passion and anger, seek wealth by unrighteous means to satisfy their thirst for enjoyment. Since they hate God, the Lord hurls them to the wombs of demons Thus, they get stuck in the cycle of birth and death. The Lord cautions Arjuna and us of triple gateway to hell. Trividam narakasya idam dwaram nashanam atmanah kamah krodha तथा लोभ तस्मात् एतत्त्रयं त्यजेत्. Triple is the gateway of hell: desire, anger, and greed, destructive of oneself. Therefore, one should give up the triple evil. Finally, the Lord advises Arjuna to strictly follow the scriptural injunctions which clearly tell us what should be done and what should not be done while performing our duty. Thank you. Chapter 17 is called Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga, Yoga of Threefold Faith. Arjuna asked an important question after Sri Krishna said that scriptural injunctions should be followed. The question was, if a person has deep faith in the higher power but is worshipping in a way ignorant of scriptural directions, then such a worship is of what nature? त्रिविधा भवति श्रद्धा देहिनां सा स्वभावजा सात्विकी राजसी चैव तामसी चेति तां शृणु. Born of the nature, that is past samskaras of beings, that Shraddha is threefold: sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Men of sattvic guna worship the devas. Men of rajoguna worship the yaksha and rakshasas. Men of tamoguna worship the hosts of departed souls and nature spirits. The Supreme Lord then elaborates on the preferences that these three types of people have with regard to food and austerities. Sattvic type of men like foods which augment life, purity, strength, joy, and cheerfulness, which are savory, oleaginous, substantial, and agreeable. Rajasic men like food which are bitter, sour, saline, excessively hot, pungent, dry, causing thirst, pain, and disease. Tamasic like stale food, dry, putrid, rotten, refuse, impure, and tasteless. Sattvic austerity of body includes bodily purity, mental purity, purity of surroundings, vow of celibacy, and non-injury. Sattvic austerity of mind means keeping the mind serene, pleasing facial expression, silence, self-control, purity of thought and feeling. Sattvic austerity of speech, which does not excite others, which is truthful, delighting, and beneficial. Sattvic men do not desire any fruits while performing austerity of body, speech, and mind. Rajasic austerity is performed for the sake of gaining good reputation, honor, and reverence in society. Tamasic austerity is practiced with foolish obstinacy, with self-torture, and for the destruction of the other. The Lord then tells Arjuna the importance of utterance of triple designation of the Supreme Lord, Om Tat Sat, before any action is undertaken. It is also to be uttered at the end of each action to indicate auspiciousness. Om Tat Sat implies that only the Supreme Soul is the reality and the entire objective world is only a shadow, unreal. By uttering this mantra, the aspirant is contemplating the reality of Supreme Lord and rejecting the unreal world. Chapter 18 is called Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, Yoga of Liberation by Renunciation. This is the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It is also a long chapter. We can say it is a summary of all the previous chapters and all the yogas. It is a reiteration of the essence of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. The most interesting part of this chapter is Sri Krishna giving a new meaning to the words sannyasa and tyaga. In English, there is only one term for both these words, and that is renunciation. The title of this chapter is also Moksha Sannyasa. It is attaining liberation through renunciation. We normally understand sannyasa as renouncing the family life and heading towards the forest. And tyaga means renouncing family life again, but remaining in the society, being unattached. And in both the cases, renunciation of action is common. Sri Krishna, being the greatest exponent of Vedanta, treats sannyasa as renunciation of all desireful actions, which means even sannyasi performs some action. Tyaga is abandoning the fruits of actions so performed. Sri Krishna is of clear opinion that prescribed duties should not be abandoned as they help in purification of one's mind for further progress. But he also emphasizes that duty should be performed by giving up the idea of doership and abandoning desire to enjoy the fruits of work. Only then, liberation from pain and disease, cycle of birth and death, and attainment of the Supreme Lord is possible. Yasya nang krito bhavo buddhir yasya na lipyate hatva pisamam imam lokan nahanti nibadhyate. Sri Krishna answers to the doubt of Arjuna that killing is a sin. Who is free from the egoistic notion of doership, where whose intellect is not tainted, though having slain all the beings, he does not slay, nor is he bound by the evil of action. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesha Arjuna tishtati Brahmyan sarvabhutani yantrarudhamayayam. O Arjuna, the Lord dwells in the hearts of all beings, causing all beings revolve like puppets by his elusive power, Maya. Sarvadharman parityajya मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. This is the last message of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. If the individual fully surrenders to the Lord the fruits of all his karma and dharma, then the Lord will liberate him from all his sins. Sri Krishna then asks Arjuna if he has heard him with concentrated mind and if delusion of his ignorance is destroyed. Arjuna says, "My delusion is destroyed. I have regained my memory through your grace, O Krishna. I stand firm, free from doubt. I will do according to your word." Let us now hear the reward we gain from the knowledge of Gita. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Sri Vijayor Bhotir Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama. Wherever is Krishna, Lord of Yoga, wherever is Arjuna, the wielder of bow, there are prosperity, victory, happiness, and sound policy. In simple terms, it means that if we give up our ego, purify our mind, and are ready to perform actions without seeking their fruits, taking full refuge in our inner soul, the Atma, then victory, prosperity, and happiness is guaranteed. Blessed is the person sharing the message of Gita. Equally blessed is the person who is listening to the message of Gita. Krishna Arpanamastu. Om Tat Sat.